Hey y'all, welcome to another episode of Saturday Selah. This is Saturday Selah number 4. I am Yawande, the Resolute Rose, and this Saturday I really have a special message about transition and being versus doing and stillness. And so I wanted to share just some things that have been kind of happening in my life and my reflections on those. And so I'm going to backtrack just a little bit. So back in 2020, I decided to leave my corporate job, and it was actually around this time, right around this time, 2 years ago, that I went home and I, kind of had a come to Jesus meeting with my dad, and the writing was on the wall, but I ultimately decided to leave my corporate job. I was also blogging at the time. I love to write, I love to speak, and so this is basically in some ways my blog in written form. But I decided, this week, as I feel another transition coming in my life, to reread one of I think it's my best blog yet. It's called Finding My Way in the Valley. And so I was rereading that blog, and I was just thinking, I kind of dialed back to the state of mind I was in. I had just left my job. I had no plan, no elaborate plan. And if you know me, I'm the type of person who will, I'm the type of person who always has a plan, always has it laid out to the T. And this time, leaving my job, I heard a very, clear instruction that I needed to leave my job, but I didn't hear instructions on what to do next. As an artist, I was like, oh my God, yes, it's time to do my art full time. Side note, this is a picture I painted also in 2020 of my grandmother, who we call Mumsy. She has passed, and so I keep this in my daughter's nursery where I'm recording from today because she's not here. I record in here when I'm missing her, but I just wanted to kind of share that little tidbit. Anyway, going back to the blog, I had no plan back in 2020. I just knew that it was time for me to go. My only plan was to be. And I realized that I had gotten so wrapped up in doing that I forgot, or maybe even never knew or learned how to be. And I had kind of like a series of downloads that year. And I remember writing this blog in October around my birthday, and another kind of download came to me, but it was only 2 words. It was divine provision. And I kind of sat with it, and I was like, okay, so maybe that means that I'm going to be good, whatever that looks like. But when the divine speaks, I listen, and divine provision. And somehow from that conversation, I started to really think about mountains and valleys. And I remember, what really stuck out to me in my blog was the idea, and this is almost a direct quote. It says, why is it that we romanticize making it to the top of a mountain, but we miss the divine provision that comes in the valley? If you think about it, the valley is where the streams are and where it's really grassy, and you might meet, a couple of furry friends along the way, and that's where there's a lot of the vegetation and a lot of provision, honestly. That's where you gather the things that you'll need on your way up to the mountain. Once you get to the peak of a mountain, the air is thin, it's lonely, and I'm not knocking the mountain at all. I'm just saying we glorify the mountain often without thinking about the provision and the necessity of the valley. And so when I remember in 2020, I kept saying, I feel like I leveled my life. I had completely obliterated everything that I knew to be about myself in many ways. And it wasn't just the job. There were many different things. I undid so many things that I kind of just had no choice but to sit with myself and let go of all of the unnecessary doing and really just surrender and be. I really let go of certain plans I had and attachments to those. And I just sat down and let the divine lead me truly. So that 2020 until, it's since 2020, I've been definitely in a state of surrender. And so I listed out, several different ways of how I was going to spend my time in the valley in the blog. And I remember in one of the 7 things, I recounted a conversation I had with a woman named Carlene about stillness versus stagnancy. And she was like, there's a very big difference between being still and being stagnant. And that really, really stuck with me. And so kind of fast forwarding to today, I've been fasting for the past 17 days. And I had, with a group of women, some who I know, some who I don't. It's funny because I've never been so committed or so excited about a fast in my life, but something told me that a transition was coming and that I really needed to kind of like get still, remove a lot of the distractions, and fast. And I set, very, very specific intentions at the beginning of, what I was hoping to come to pass. And here I am, 17 days into the fast, and I found myself at yet another life transition. And so I'm processing the major shift that is about to take place. But I don't know, it's an interesting time. And so as I'm processing the shift that's about to come, I'm also thinking on everything that's happened in literally the past 2 years. I need to look at my calendar. It might even be to the day that I've had that conversation with my father, because I know that I went home for his birthday, and his birthday is June 23rd. Today's June 25th, so I know it was right around this time. But I think that with this transition that's coming, and I'll give you more details, in another kind of as the Saturday Selah unfold. If you're in my newsletter, if you're on my email list, you'll hear about it as well. But I realized that it's been extremely difficult for me to do for the past 2 years. And I don't even think it's because of the, unfortunate luxury of the pandemic. I think I was really called to just be in this season. And because I found myself just encountering resistance for some of the most menial things that I could do so easily and without thought. I feel like my assignment essentially for this season was really about the experience of being. And if you see my eyes shifting, this message came to me and it hit so hard that I had to write notes. And so I'm looking at my notes just to make sure I don't miss anything. So bear with me. But, I think that I needed to be still and I needed to be instead of do, so that when the shift, would come again, because life inevitably shifts and changes. That's the only constant we have. I needed to be ready for the shift. I needed to be, my mind, my body, my heart, my way of being needed to be fortified in order to move forward. And so, excuse me, as the pace and the season of my life begins to change again, I'm coming from a space of greater self-awareness. I'm coming with a deeper understanding of who I am and how I am when I'm at my best, and what life looks like on my terms when I'm just being. I'm saying all of this to say that, yes, life inevitably changes, but I encourage you all to check in with yourselves. And, excuse me, see, this is why I need my tea in the morning, okay? I say all of this to encourage you all to check in with yourselves and ask yourself, are you being and are you doing? And not knocking either or promoting either, but what is the season that you're in? What does that call for? Are you being called to do, or are you being called to be? So check in with yourself. Ask yourself what it feels like when you're doing versus when you're being. Do you even know what that feels like? Does either make you feel uncomfortable? I know that this season of being for me has been very uncomfortable. I'm the kid who in fifth grade was in band, strings, and chorus, and safety patrol, and doing all the things. My friends called me doing the most cartoon. Like, I've always done the most. And so it's been extremely uncomfortable for me to simply be in this season. And so I really ask you to inquire within yourself, what would life look like if I was to simply be a little more? Or if you are used to being, if you were to do a little more. I know that, we don't have the unfortunate luxury of a pandemic right now. And so I'm not asking anyone to level their life or quit their job. Shout out to Beyonce, because that song, I'm excited for the album. But anyway, I'm not telling you to do that, but I'm just asking you to kind of lean in to where you are in this stage of your life, and think about what life would look like if you were to just be. So that is, what I wanted to share this Saturday Selah. As you guys know, I like to keep these pretty brief. And so I'm going to share, I read this I have like 2 more chapters, but the book that I read this week, it's called The Power of the Subconscious Mind by Joseph Murphy. I won't say it's my favorite book just yet, but it's definitely top 3. If you've not read it, please, it's free on YouTube even. Take the time to read that book or listen to that book and really sit with it, because it really speaks to just how, see, tea again. It's sunny, but it's early. It speaks to how much of our lives we control just with the things that we think. And it's not like, oh, I'm manifesting this or that in a woo-woo way, but it's you get what you are expecting. You attract what you are believing for. And there are ways to affirm your way to the things that you desire and that you need. But anyway, The Power of the Subconscious Mind by Joseph Murphy. I'll link in the bio, in the notes, the link to the free listening on YouTube. And then I also wanted to share the affirmation this week. And I have to share that this is not an affirmation that I wrote. I usually share my own affirmations, but this week I listened to a podcast called Redefining Wealth by a woman named Patrice Washington. And in this week's episode, she had a guest named Amy Porterfield on there, and it was talking about non-attachment in business. And she starts her show with an affirmation of the week. And when she read that affirmation, it literally spoke to my life and just where I am right now in this season of transition. And so I wanted to share that because it spoke to me, and I hope it speaks to you as well. And it's longer than what I'm sharing, but this is a tidbit. She shares it within like the first 5 minutes of the episode, and so I'll link to her episode below so you can really get the full thing. But the affirmation is, I remain true to myself as my purpose evolves. I give myself the freedom and grace to grow, expand, and evolve. And then she goes on to talk about how your talents in one season, although seasons change, you may apply your talents in different ways for different people. And that doesn't mean you're any less rooted in your purpose. And so definitely encourage you to listen to that episode if you can. If you can't, at least listen to the first 5-10 minutes where she goes into that affirmation. It's super helpful. And last but not least, I love my Adjourn Tea House. And it's June. It's Juneteenth just passed, and this month's blend is called Sojourn. It is so good, and I know that I say that every week, but this one is so good. It's lavender lemon rooibos tea. It's called Sojourn by Adjourn Tea House, and of course I always link to that as well. And so that is it for this week's Saturday Selah. I said I want to keep these less than 15 minutes. I am running up on my time, and so I appreciate you guys for being here. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll see you next week, and sound off in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, all of those things. Tell somebody about these morning love letters, as I like to call them. Visit my website if you're interested in my art. No, this is my work right here. And yeah, I'll see you next week. Thanks, guys.